My coworker sent a video of my paralyzed sister walking around a casino. The video message from Marcus arrived at 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday, just as I was getting ready for bed after another exhausting day of managing Emma's care routine. The notification lit up my phone screen with that sickeningly cheerful ping, and I almost ignored it. Marcus from accounting wasn't exactly someone I wanted to hear from, especially after I'd gotten the promotion to senior analyst that he'd been gunning for. But something made me tap the message anyway. Maybe it was the way he'd been glaring at me across the office for the past 2 weeks, or how he'd made that snide comment about people who don't deserve their luck during the team meeting yesterday. The video started playing immediately. Shaky phone footage, clearly taken from across a crowded room. The audio was muffled by casino noise, slot machines chiming, people talking, the general chaos of a Friday night at the Riverside Casino downtown. For a few seconds, I couldn't make out what Marcus was trying to show me. Just a typical gambling floor, people hunched over machines, cocktail waitresses weaving between tables. Then the camera zoomed in, and my blood turned to ice water. Emma. My paralyzed sister Emma, who hadn't walked a single step since the accident on Highway 94 2 years ago. Emma, who needed help transferring from her wheelchair to her bed every night. Emma, for whom I'd been collecting $3,400 in monthly disability payments while serving as her legal guardian and caretaker. Emma was standing at a blackjack table, shifting her weight from one foot to the other like any normal person. She was laughing at something the dealer said, gesturing animatedly with her hands. She looked healthy. Happy. Completely, utterly, impossibly mobile. The video was only 37 seconds long, but those 37 seconds contained enough evidence to destroy both our lives. I watched her take a sip from her drink, watched her lean forward to place another bet, watched her take 2 clear steps to the left to make room for another player. The message that followed made my hand shake so violently I nearly dropped my phone. Interesting recovery your sister's made, Sarah. Looks like those disability checks really helped with her rehabilitation. Winking face. We should probably have a chat tomorrow about your new promotion. Unless you prefer I send this video to the state insurance fraud division instead? Your choice. Sleep tight. I sank onto my couch, staring at the screen as the video looped automatically. Every detail was crystal clear, Emma's face, the timestamp showing last Friday at 9:23 p.m., even the Riverside Casino logo visible on cocktail napkins in the foreground. Marcus had been thorough. $41,000. That's how much we'd collected in disability payments since Emma's supposed accident. Money that had kept us both afloat after our parents cut us off completely, calling us disappointments and moving to Arizona without leaving so much as a forwarding address. Money that had paid for Emma's therapy, our rent, groceries, everything we needed to survive in this city where we had no one else but each other. Money that the federal government would now classify as fraudulent theft, punishable by up to 20 years in prison. I looked down the hallway toward Emma's bedroom, where she was presumably asleep in the hospital bed I'd bought with the first disability check. At least, I thought she was asleep. Apparently, I didn't know my sister nearly as well as I believed. My phone buzzed again. Another message from Marcus, conference room be tomorrow at lunch. Come alone. I didn't sleep at all that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Emma's face in that casino video, bright and animated in a way I hadn't seen since before the accident. Or what I thought was an accident. At 6:15 a.m., I finally gave up on sleep and crept down the hallway to Emma's room. I pressed my ear against her door, listening for any signs of movement. Nothing but silence. Part of me wanted to confront her immediately, to demand answers about what the hell she'd been doing at the Riverside Casino when she was supposed to be paralyzed from the waist down. But a bigger part of me knew I needed to think this through carefully before I said anything that might make our situation worse. Marcus had me trapped, and he knew it. That promotion to senior analyst came with a $18,000 salary increase and was my ticket to finally getting ahead after years of scraping by. He'd applied for the same position and been passed over, his performance reviews had been mediocre at best, and everyone in the office knew he spent more time gossiping by the coffee machine than actually working. But apparently, he'd been spending his free time more productively than I'd realized. I made coffee with shaking hands and tried to piece together a timeline. Emma claimed she went to bed around 9 p.m. every night, right after we finished watching whatever Netflix show she'd picked. I usually stayed up another hour or two handling bills and paperwork before checking on her one final time. Her bedroom window faced the back courtyard of our apartment complex. She could easily have left and returned without me noticing, especially if she was more mobile than she'd been letting on. The fraudulent disability payments weren't even the worst part, though that was bad enough. We'd also been getting supplemental food assistance, reduced rent through a disability housing program, and I'd been claiming her as a dependent with special needs on my taxes. The total value of benefits we'd received over 2 years was probably closer to $60,000 when everything was factored in. At 7:30 a.m., I heard Emma's alarm clock go off, followed by the usual sounds of her morning routine. The creak of her bed, the shuffle of movement, then her voice calling out like she did every day, "Sarah? Can you help me get to the bathroom?" I stood frozen in my kitchen, coffee mug halfway to my lips. After seeing that video, even her voice sounded different, less strained, more like she was performing than actually struggling. How long had this been going on? Had she been faking her paralysis from the very beginning, or had she recovered at some point and simply decided not to tell me? "Sarah," she called again, louder this time. "I really need help in here." I set down my mug and walked toward her room, my mind racing through possibilities. Maybe I could convince Marcus that the video wasn't what it looked like. Maybe I could claim Emma was having some kind of miraculous recovery and we were planning to report it to the disability office. Maybe I could. No. The video was too clear, too damning. Marcus wasn't stupid, and he'd obviously planned this ambush carefully. He wanted my promotion, and he'd found the perfect leverage to get it. I knocked gently on Emma's door before opening it, steeling myself to look at my sister with completely new eyes. She was sitting on the edge of her bed in her pajamas, looking perfectly normal and helpless. "Morning," she said with a smile that now seemed calculated. "Ready for another exciting day of Netflix and physical therapy?" The casual lie rolled off her tongue so easily that I wondered what else she'd been hiding from me. I helped Emma with her morning routine like I had every day for the past 2 years, but now every movement felt like participating in an elaborate charade. When she asked me to lift her legs into the wheelchair, I noticed how she subtly helped with muscle tension that shouldn't have existed in paralyzed limbs. When she transferred to the bathroom, her arms seemed stronger than they should have been, supporting weight that her supposedly useless legs should have made dead weight. "You seem tired," she said as I wheeled her to the kitchen table. "Everything okay?" "Just work stress," I managed, pouring her coffee. "The new position has me worried about office politics." Emma nodded sympathetically. "Marcus is still being a jerk about the promotion?" The casual way she said his name made my stomach clench. Did she know about the video? Was she aware that our entire carefully constructed life was about to implode? "He's persistent," I said carefully. "Emma, what did you do last Friday night after I went to bed?" She didn't even hesitate. "Same thing I do every night. Watched some YouTube videos, read for a while, went to sleep around 10:30. "Why?" The lie was so smooth, so practiced, that I almost believed it myself despite having watched her dancing around a blackjack table at 9:23 p.m. last Friday. How many other nights had she snuck out? How long had she been living this double life while I stressed about physical therapy appointments and handicapped parking permits? My phone buzzed with a text from my manager. "Sarah, can you come in early today? Need to discuss the Henderson account transition." Perfect. Another crisis to juggle while my world collapsed around me. "I have to go in early," I told Emma, grabbing my keys. "Will you be okay until Mrs. Chen checks on you at noon?" Mrs. Chen was our elderly neighbor who'd agreed to look in on Emma during my work days, part of the elaborate care network I built around my sister's supposed disability. Another person who'd been unknowingly complicit in our fraud. "I'll be fine," Emma said, settling in front of the TV with her breakfast. "Just going to work on some of those exercises Dr. Martinez recommended." Dr. Martinez. Our neurologist, who'd been documenting Emma's lack of progress in detailed reports that supported our disability claims. Reports that Emma had clearly been feeding him false information for, based on what I'd seen in that video. The 30-minute drive to work gave me time to calculate exactly how screwed we were. Disability fraud was a federal crime carrying sentences of up to 20 years and fines of $250,000. The state insurance fraud division had a conviction rate of 94% according to the statistics I'd frantically Googled at 3 a.m. Even if we tried to claim Emma had recently recovered, we'd already committed fraud by not immediately reporting the improvement in her condition. Marcus was waiting by the elevator when I arrived at the office building, 20 minutes earlier than usual. He smiled when he saw me, the kind of predatory grin that made my skin crawl. "Sarah." Perfect timing. I brought coffee. He held up 2 cups from the expensive place across the street. "Figured we could have that chat before things get busy." I haven't had time to think about. "Oh, you've had plenty of time," he interrupted smoothly. "I sent that video 12 hours ago. How much thinking does it really take?" We stepped into the elevator together, and Marcus pressed the button for the 5th floor instead of our usual 3rd. Conference room B was on 5, in the executive wing where conversations couldn't be overheard by curious coworkers. "You know what I find most interesting about the whole situation?" Marcus continued conversationally as we rode up. "The timestamp data embedded in video files these days. Really remarkable how much information gets stored automatically." My blood turned cold. He wasn't just talking about one video anymore. The elevator doors opened with a soft ding that sounded like a death knell. Marcus gestured for me to exit first, playing the gentleman while holding evidence that could destroy my life. Conference room B was empty at 8:15 a.m., with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city where Emma was probably already planning her next secret outing. "Have a seat," Marcus said, settling across from me with his expensive coffee. "I think you'll find this conversation very educational." He pulled out his phone and opened what looked like a photo album. My heart hammered against my ribs as he turned the screen toward me. "Friday night at the Riverside was just the most recent documentation," he said casually. "But I've been tracking your sister's remarkable recovery for about 6 weeks now." The first photo showed Emma getting out of a taxi outside Nordstrom, clearly taken from across the street with a telephoto lens. The timestamp read September 15th, 3:47 p.m., last month, while I'd been at work believing she was home doing physical therapy exercises. Marcus swiped to the next image. Emma walking into a Starbucks, no wheelchair in sight. September 22nd, 2:13 p.m. Another swipe. Emma sitting on a park bench, legs crossed naturally, feeding pigeons. September 28th, 11:25 a.m. She's got quite an active social calendar for someone collecting full disability, Marcus continued. I particularly enjoyed watching her actually jog, through Riverside Park last Tuesday. Really inspiring recovery story. The photos kept coming. Emma at a movie theater. Emma browsing books at Barnes & Noble. Emma having lunch with a woman I didn't recognize, both of them laughing like old friends. Every image was dated and timestamped, creating an undeniable pattern of deception stretching back over a month. "How did you," I started. "Find out?" Marcus smiled. "Pure accident, actually. I was having lunch at that little sandwich place on 5th Street about 7 weeks ago when I saw someone who looked exactly like your poor, paralyzed sister walking by the window. At first I thought it must be a coincidence, surely Sarah's tragic sister couldn't be window shopping downtown while collecting federal disability checks." He took a sip of his coffee, savoring my horror. "But then I remembered you mentioning Emma's distinctive butterfly tattoo on her left wrist during that office birthday party last year. Same tattoo, same face, same person. Just with a miraculous ability to walk. So I started paying attention." The final photo made my stomach drop completely. Emma coming out of our apartment building at 11:30 p.m. 3 nights ago, wearing a short dress and heels, looking like she was headed to a club. The timestamp showed Tuesday night, the same day I'd helped her with a particularly difficult physical therapy session and she'd complained about increased pain in her legs. 6 weeks of surveillance, Marcus said, putting his phone away. 47 photos, 12 video clips, detailed timestamps, GPS coordinates for each location. "I've been very thorough." "What do you want?" I whispered. "I want you to walk into HR this morning and tell them you're declining the senior analyst promotion due to personal circumstances," Marcus replied. "Effective immediately. You'll recommend me as the ideal replacement candidate, citing my superior qualifications and dedication to the company. Marcus, please. I want you to send a company-wide email thanking everyone for their competence but explaining that family obligations require you to focus on your current role. You'll be gracious about it. Professional." No hint that you're doing anything other than making a voluntary decision. The conference room felt like it was shrinking around me. And if I do that? Then these photos and videos remain my private collection. Your sister's miraculous recovery stays between us. You keep your current job, your current salary, and your freedom. What about Emma? Marcus shrugged. What about her? As long as you give me what I want, I have no reason to report anything to the authorities. Your sister can keep collecting her checks and living her double life. I honestly don't care. I stared out the window at the city below, trying to process the impossible choice he was offering. Give up the promotion I'd worked 3 years to earn, or watch Emma face federal fraud charges that could put her in prison for decades. I need time to think. No. Marcus's voice turned sharp. You have until 10 a.m. to send that email to HR. 2 hours, Sarah. After that, my next call goes to the state insurance fraud hotline. I sat in that conference room for 30 seconds after Marcus left, staring at his empty coffee cup and trying to process what had just happened. 2 hours. I had 2 hours to choose between my career and my sister's freedom, and neither option felt like something I could live with. The walk back to my desk felt like a funeral march. My coworkers were starting to filter in for the day, chatting about weekend plans and complaining about Monday morning meetings. Normal people living normal lives, completely unaware that the woman walking past their cubicles was about to lose everything. I opened my laptop and stared at the blank email screen. The cursor blinked in the to field, waiting for me to type in HR's address and destroy 3 years of careful career building with a few professional sentences. Instead, I opened a new browser tab and searched disability fraud whistleblower rewards. The results made my hands shake. The federal government paid informants up to 30% of recovered fraudulent payments. $60,000 in total benefits meant Marcus could collect an $18,000 reward for turning us in, almost exactly what my promotion would have been worth in annual salary increase. This wasn't just about the job. This was about money. Marcus had found a way to profit from our destruction while looking like a concerned citizen reporting crime. My phone buzzed with a text from Emma. Forgot to mention, Dr. Martinez wants to schedule a follow-up appointment this week. Can you call his office? Dr. Martinez. The neurologist who'd been documenting Emma's condition for 2 years, signing off on disability renewals based on her reported symptoms. If Marcus had been following Emma for 6 weeks, there was no way she'd been maintaining her paralysis act during medical appointments. Which meant I dialed Dr. Martinez's office before I could lose my nerve. This is Sarah Chin calling about my sister Emma, I told the receptionist. I need to clarify something about her recent visits. Of course. Let me pull up her file. A pause, then, I show her last appointment was August 12th. She missed her September follow-up and hasn't rescheduled. Is everything alright? August 12th. More than 2 months ago, which meant Emma had been skipping medical appointments since before Marcus started his surveillance. She'd been lying to me about doctor visits while secretly recovering and living a completely different life. Has she been in contact about any changes in her condition? I asked carefully. No, but that's not unusual. Many patients avoid appointments when they're not seeing the progress they'd hoped for. The psychological aspects of spinal injury recovery can be quite challenging. I thanked the receptionist and hung up, my mind racing. Emma hadn't just been faking her continued paralysis, she'd been actively avoiding the medical oversight that might have documented her recovery. This wasn't a recent development or a gradual healing process. This was a calculated deception that had been going on for months, possibly longer. My computer chimed with a calendar reminder, Henderson account transition meeting, 9:30 a.m. The promotion responsibilities I was supposed to give up in 37 minutes. I looked around the office at my coworkers, people who'd congratulated me on the advancement and seemed genuinely happy about my success. In a few hours, they'd be reading my email about declining the position, and Marcus would be smugly accepting the role he'd blackmailed me into surrendering. Unless I found another option. I opened a new search tab and typed, how to prove video evidence is fake. The results weren't encouraging. Modern deepfake detection required sophisticated software and expert analysis that I couldn't afford and didn't have time for. But as I scrolled through articles about digital forensics, one phrase caught my attention, chain of custody. Legal evidence required documented proof of when, where, and how it was collected. Marcus had been conducting unauthorized surveillance of my sister for weeks, potentially violating stalking laws and privacy regulations. His photos and videos might be real, but the way he'd obtained them might be illegal enough to make them inadmissible in court. My phone showed 9:23 a.m. 37 minutes until Marcus's deadline. I picked up my desk phone and dialed the one number I'd been avoiding since this nightmare started. Emma? I said when she answered. We need to talk. Right now. I'll be home in 20 minutes, I told Emma, already grabbing my purse. Don't go anywhere. There was a pause that lasted just a beat too long. Where would I go, Sarah? I can't exactly. Cut the shit, Emma. The words came out harsher than I'd intended, but I was past caring about her feelings. We both know that's not true anymore. Another silence, then a quiet oh. I hung up without another word and practically ran to the elevator. Marcus was nowhere to be seen, probably already drafting his acceptance speech for the promotion he was about to steal. My hand shook as I pressed the button for the parking garage. 18 minutes until his deadline, and I still had no idea what I was going to do. The drive home took exactly 14 minutes, during which I rehearsed a dozen different confrontations in my head. By the time I reached our apartment building, my anger had crystallized into something cold and focused. Emma had made me complicit in federal fraud without my knowledge, and now Marcus was using that deception to destroy my career. Everyone was using me, and I was done being a victim. I found Emma exactly where I'd left her that morning, sitting in her wheelchair at the kitchen table, breakfast dishes still scattered around her. But now, instead of looking helpless, she looked guilty as hell. How long? I asked without preamble. Sarah, I can explain. How long? I pulled out my phone and showed her Marcus's casino video. Have you been lying to me this entire time, or did you recover at some point and just decide not to mention it? Emma's face went completely white as she watched herself walking around the blackjack table. When the video ended, she looked up at me with tears in her eyes. 14 months, she whispered. The number hit me like a physical blow. 14 months. Over a year of elaborate deception, fake doctor visits, and me helping her in and out of a wheelchair she didn't need. Over a year of me believing I was caring for my disabled sister while she was secretly living a completely normal life. Jesus Christ, Emma. I sank into the chair across from her. Do you have any idea what you've done to us? I was going to tell you. When? After we got arrested? After they sent us to federal prison? I showed her my phone screen again. This video was taken by my coworker. He's blackmailing me. I have to give up my promotion in 12 minutes or he reports us both for fraud. Emma's hands flew to her mouth. Oh my God. Sarah, I'm so sorry. I never meant. $24,000, I interrupted. That's what we fraudulently collected in the past 14 months alone. Not counting food stamps, housing assistance, tax benefits, all of it. The federal government considers that grand theft, Emma. 20 years in prison. She was crying now, but I felt nothing but rage. Why? Why would you do this to us? Because I was scared, she burst out. When I started getting feeling back in my legs, when I could move my toes again, I was terrified. What if it didn't last? What if I told everyone I was getting better and then got worse again? We'd already been getting the checks for 8 months, and you were so happy that we finally had enough money to live. So you decided to keep lying. At first it was just for a few weeks, to make sure the recovery was real. But then you got so invested in taking care of me, and the money was helping both of us, and I didn't know how to stop without admitting what I'd done. My phone showed 9:57 a.m. 3 minutes. Emma, get up. She hesitated for just a moment, then pushed herself out of the wheelchair and stood normally. No struggle, no careful maneuvering. She looked perfectly healthy and strong. Walk to the window. She walked across the room with completely normal gait. No limp, no weakness, nothing to indicate she'd ever been paralyzed. I watched my sister move like any other 26-year-old woman and felt my entire world recalibrate around this new reality. My phone buzzed. 9:59 a.m. 1 minute until Marcus expected my resignation email, and I still had no idea how to save us from the disaster Emma had created. But as I watched her standing by the window, healthy, mobile, and terrified, a desperate plan started forming in my mind. Emma, I said slowly, how would you feel about going back to being paralyzed for a while? Emma stared at me from across the room, her face cycling through confusion, fear, and something that might have been relief. What do you mean, go back to being paralyzed? I mean we're going to beat Marcus at his own game. My phone showed 10:01 a.m. I was already past his deadline, but I had a new plan forming. How many people have actually seen you walking around? I don't know. I was careful. I only went out when you were at work, and I tried to stay away from our neighborhood. Think, Emma. This is important. Did you talk to anyone? Make friends? Have conversations with people who might remember you? She shook her head quickly. I was paranoid about getting caught. I mostly just walked around downtown, went to movies by myself, sat in parks. I paid cash for everything so there wouldn't be credit card records. The woman Marcus photographed me having lunch with was just someone I met that day at the coffee shop. We talked for like 20 minutes and I never saw her again. That was something, at least. What about the casino? Do you have a player's card? Did you give them your real name? No, I just walked in and played with cash. I was too scared to sign up for anything official. Emma moved away from the window, and I noticed she was unconsciously walking normally, no performance, no fake limp. Sarah, what are you thinking? My phone rang. Marcus, of course. I let it go to voicemail. I'm thinking that Marcus made a crucial mistake, I said, my mind racing through possibilities. He's been stalking you for 6 weeks, taking unauthorized photos and videos. That's illegal surveillance, Emma. And he's using that evidence to extort me, which is blackmail. Both of those are felonies. But the fraud is also a felony, yes. But here's the thing about blackmail cases, prosecutors hate them. Even when the victim has done something wrong, they still prosecute the blackmailer because it's such a clear-cut crime. I started pacing, the plan becoming clearer. Marcus just handed us leverage. Emma sat down heavily in her wheelchair, a prop now, I realized, not a medical necessity. I don't understand. Marcus thinks he holds all the cards because he has evidence of our fraud. But what he doesn't realize is that by trying to extort me, he's committed a crime that's potentially worse than ours. Especially since he obtained his evidence through illegal stalking. My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus, time's up, Sarah. Hope your sister looks good in orange. There's just one problem, I continued, ignoring the message. His evidence is real. You were walking around, and we did commit fraud. So we need to muddy the waters. How? I looked at my sister, really looked at her, standing next to the wheelchair she'd been pretending to need for over a year. We're going to claim you've been experiencing intermittent recovery. Temporary periods where sensation and mobility return, followed by relapses back to paralysis. It's a real medical phenomenon called incomplete spinal cord injury with neurological fluctuations. Emma's eyes widened. Is that actually a thing? Dr. Martinez mentioned it during one of your early appointments. He said some patients experience unpredictable recovery patterns, especially in the first few years after injury. I pulled up a contact on my phone. We're going to schedule an emergency appointment with him for this afternoon. You're going to tell him you've been having episodes of temporary mobility for the past few months but were afraid to report them because you thought they might be psychosomatic. Will he believe that? He'll have to investigate it, which buys us time. And Emma? I met her eyes. From this moment forward, you are paralyzed again. Completely. No more secret outings, no more walking when I'm not around. If anyone sees you mobile again, we're both going to prison. She nodded quickly. Okay. Yes. I can do that. My phone rang again. This time it wasn't Marcus, it was my manager. Sarah? Where are you? The Henderson meeting started 10 minutes ago. I closed my eyes. In all the chaos, I'd completely forgotten about the account transition meeting. I'm so sorry, Janet. Family emergency. My sister had a medical episode and I had to. Is she alright? We're not sure yet. I'm taking her to see her neurologist this afternoon. There might be some changes in her condition. Of course, take all the time you need. We can reschedule the Henderson transition. I hung up and looked at Emma, who was gripping the arms of her wheelchair like a lifeline. This is really happening, isn't it? She whispered. Yeah, I said grimly. It's happening. And Emma? When we get through this, and we will get through this, you and I are going to have a very long conversation about honesty. She nodded, tears streaming down her face. I know. I'm so sorry, Sarah. I never wanted any of this. My phone buzzed with another message from Marcus. Enjoy unemployment. And give my regards to the federal prosecutors. I deleted the message without responding. Marcus thought he'd won, but he was about to learn that blackmail was a dangerous game to play with people who had nothing left to lose. The appointment with Dr. Martinez was scheduled for 3:30 p.m., which gave us 5 hours to prepare Emma's story about intermittent recovery episodes. But first, I needed to deal with the immediate crisis at work. Marcus had left 3 more voicemails by noon, each one more threatening than the last. In the final message, his voice carried a smugness that made my skin crawl. I'm filing the fraud report at 5 p.m. today, Sarah. Last chance to reconsider my very reasonable offer. I sat in our living room, watching Emma practice her paralyzed routine, transferring awkwardly from wheelchair to couch, letting her legs drag uselessly, wincing as if movement caused pain. She was a better actress than I'd given her credit for, which probably should have been a red flag months ago. We need documentation, I said, pulling up Dr. Martinez's patient portal on my laptop. Emma, what's the longest you've gone recently without walking around? She thought for a moment. Maybe 4 days? Last week when you had that stomach flu and were home more often. 4 days. My sister couldn't even go a full week without abandoning her paralysis act. We need to create a timeline of these supposed episodes. When did they start? How often do they happen? How long do they last? Sarah, what if Dr. Martinez doesn't believe me? What if he orders tests that prove I'm lying? That was the million-dollar question. Neurological recovery was complex enough that short-term testing might not definitively prove anything, but extensive evaluation would eventually expose Emma's deception. We needed to control the narrative before that happened. My phone rang, an unknown number with a local area code. Sarah Chen? The voice was crisp, official. This is Detective Reynolds with the Financial Crimes Division. I'd like to schedule a time to speak with you regarding some concerns that have been brought to our attention. My blood turned to ice. I'm sorry, what concerns? I'd prefer to discuss this in person. Would you be available to come in this afternoon? Marcus hadn't waited until 5 p.m. He'd already filed his report, probably within minutes of his deadline passing. I looked at Emma, who was staring at me with growing panic as she listened to my side of the conversation. Detective, I'm actually dealing with a family medical emergency right now. My sister is having some neurological complications and we have a doctor's appointment. Ms. Chen, I understand this is inconvenient, but these are serious allegations. The sooner we can clear this up, the better for everyone involved. What kind of allegations? There was a pause. Insurance fraud, Ms. Chen. Approximately $60,000 in fraudulent disability claims. Now, you can either come in voluntarily this afternoon, or I can obtain a warrant and we can handle this in a more formal manner. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely hold the phone. I'll be there. What time? 4 o'clock. Financial Crimes Division, room 314 at the downtown precinct. And Ms. Chen? You might want to consider bringing legal representation. The line went dead. I stared at my phone, processing what had just happened. In the space of 12 hours, I'd gone from having a career problem to facing federal fraud charges and a police interrogation. They want to see me at 4 p.m., I told Emma, whose face had gone completely white. Marcus didn't wait. He's already turned us in. Emma started crying again, but I felt strangely calm. The uncertainty was over. Marcus had made his move, and now we had to make ours. Call Dr. Martinez's office, I said. Tell them you need an emergency appointment immediately. Tell them you're experiencing sudden onset neurological symptoms and you're scared. Cry if you have to. What about the police? I looked at my sister, paralyzed by choice rather than medical necessity, and made a decision that would either save us both or destroy what little remained of our lives. Let me worry about Detective Reynolds, I said. You just focus on being the best paralyzed patient you've ever been. Dr. Martinez could see us at 2:15 p.m., an emergency slot that opened up when another patient canceled. Emma had performed beautifully on the phone, her voice shaking with just the right amount of fear and confusion as she described strange sensations in her legs that were different from before. We had 90 minutes to get our story straight before facing a neurologist who'd been treating spinal cord injuries for 23 years. Remember, I coached Emma as we sat in our living room. You've been having these episodes for about 3 months. They started small, just tingling, maybe a toe that seemed to move on its own. You convinced yourself it was phantom sensations, psychological wishful thinking. Emma nodded, practicing her worried expression. And I didn't tell you because I didn't want to get your hopes up if it wasn't real. Exactly. The episodes have been getting stronger recently. Yesterday you swear you felt your left leg actually support weight for maybe 10 seconds, but then everything went numb again. That's why you finally decided to call Dr. Martinez. What if he wants to do tests right away? X-rays or those electrical nerve things? EMG testing, I said. If he orders it, we'll schedule it for next week. Today is just consultation, getting your symptoms on record. The important thing is that we establish a medical timeline that predates Marcus's surveillance. My phone buzzed with a text from my manager. Sarah, HR needs to speak with you first thing tomorrow morning. Something about your promotion status? Hope everything's okay with Emma. Marcus was already making moves at work, probably laying groundwork to claim the senior analyst position. I wondered if he'd told HR about his concerns regarding my family situation, planting seeds that would make my eventual downfall look less suspicious. Sarah? Emma's voice was small. What happens if we can't pull this off? I looked at my sister, 26 years old and facing the possibility of federal prison because she'd been too scared to report her own recovery. The rational part of my mind knew I should be furious with her, should probably turn her in myself and try to negotiate some kind of plea deal. But the bigger part, the part that had been protecting Emma since our parents abandoned us, couldn't give up on her now. Then we'd go to prison, I said simply. 20 years for fraud, maybe more with the amount we took. You'll be 46 when you get out, if you get out. I'll be 48. No career, no savings, no life to come back to. Emma started crying again, but I pressed on. That's what's at stake, Emma. Not just money or embarrassment. Our entire lives. So when Dr. Martinez asks you questions, when Detective Reynolds tries to trip you up, when Marcus thinks he's won, you remember that. We spent the next hour rehearsing Emma's medical history, creating a narrative of gradual, intermittent sensations that could plausibly explain Marcus's surveillance footage. If questioned, Emma would claim she'd been having good days where she felt strong enough to attempt standing, even taking a few experimental steps. The casino video could be explained as a particularly good episode where she'd felt confident enough to venture out, only to experience a relapse the next day. It was thin, but it was something. More importantly, it bought us time to figure out our next move. At 1:45 p.m., I loaded Emma's wheelchair into our Honda Civic and tried to project the image of a devoted sister rushing her disabled sibling to an emergency medical appointment. But as we drove toward Dr. Martinez's office, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were walking into a trap of our own making. The real test wasn't going to be convincing a doctor that Emma might be experiencing neurological fluctuations. The real test was going to be facing Detective Reynolds in 90 minutes and explaining why my sister had been photographed walking around a casino while collecting federal disability payments. And somewhere across town, Marcus was probably already planning how to spend his whistleblower reward money. Dr. Martinez's office felt different this time. Every familiar detail now seemed like potential evidence against us. The motivational posters about spinal cord recovery that had once offered hope now felt like mockery. The other patients in wheelchairs looked genuinely disabled in ways that made Emma's performance feel obscene. Emma-chan? The nurse called out at exactly 2:15 p.m. I wheeled Emma into the examination room where Dr. Martinez was already reviewing her file on his tablet. He looked up with the same kind, professional smile he'd worn during dozens of previous appointments, completely unaware that he was about to become an unwitting accomplice in our desperate cover-up. Emma, Sarah, he greeted us warmly. I understand you've been experiencing some new symptoms? Emma launched into her rehearsed story, her voice trembling with what sounded like genuine anxiety. It started about 3 months ago, just little things. Sometimes I thought I felt tingling in my left foot, but I convinced myself it was phantom pain. Dr. Martinez nodded, making notes. That's very common with incomplete spinal injuries. Many patients dismiss early sensations as psychological. When did these episodes become more pronounced? Last week, Emma continued, tears forming in her eyes. I swear I felt my leg muscles tense up. And yesterday? She looked at me helplessly. Yesterday, I think I actually supported weight for a few seconds. But then everything went dead again. Fascinating, Dr. Martinez murmured, leaning forward with genuine interest. Emma, I want you to try something for me. Close your eyes and tell me if you feel this. He pressed what looked like a small metal tool against Emma's shin. I held my breath, watching my sister's face as she concentrated on giving the right response. Not too much sensation, not too little. Maybe? It's hard to tell. Sometimes I think I feel pressure, but I can't tell if it's real or if I'm imagining it. Perfect answer. Ambiguous enough to support either interpretation. Dr. Martinez continued his examination, testing reflexes and sensation at various points on Emma's legs. Each time, Emma gave carefully calibrated responses that suggested possible intermittent nerve function without definitively proving recovery. I'm going to be honest with you both, Dr. Martinez said after 15 minutes of testing. What you're describing is consistent with incomplete spinal cord injury patterns that I've seen before, but it's unusual for these fluctuations to begin so long after the initial trauma. I'd like to schedule a comprehensive evaluation, MRI, nerve conduction studies, the full battery. My heart sank. Extensive testing would eventually expose Emma's deception, no matter how good her acting skills were. How soon? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Normally I'd say next week, but given the intermittent nature of what Emma's experiencing, I think we should move quickly. Sometimes these recovery windows are brief. He turned to his computer. I can get you in Thursday morning for the MRI, and we'll do nerve conduction Friday. Thursday was 3 days away. 3 days to figure out how to handle Detective Reynolds, deal with Marcus's blackmail, and somehow prepare Emma for medical tests that would require her to be genuinely paralyzed during examination. Dr. Martinez, Emma said carefully, what if these episodes stop? What if whatever's happening reverses itself? That's certainly possible with neurological fluctuations, he replied. But Emma, if you're experiencing any periods of increased mobility, even brief ones, it's crucial that you report them immediately. There are legal implications for disability benefits that. His words were cut off by my phone buzzing insistently. Detective Reynolds, calling 45 minutes early. I'm sorry, I have to take this, I said, stepping into the hallway. Ms. Chen? There's been a development in your case. We need to move our meeting up to 3:30 p.m. And Ms. Chen? I strongly advise you to bring an attorney. The line went dead, leaving me staring at my phone in the sterile hospital corridor. Something had changed. Marcus had given them additional evidence, or they'd discovered something else, or... Sarah? Emma's voice called from the examination room. Is everything all right? I walked back in to find Dr. Martinez looking concerned and Emma gripping her wheelchair armrests with white knuckles. Family emergency, I said weakly. Doctor, we need to wrap this up. The police want to see me in 30 minutes. Dr. Martinez's eyebrows shot up. Police? Is this related to Emma's condition? The question hung in the air like a loaded gun. How much should we tell him? How much did he need to know to continue supporting our story? There's been some confusion about Emma's disability status, I said carefully. Someone has raised questions, and we need to provide medical documentation to clear things up. It wasn't technically a lie, just a creative interpretation of our current nightmare. Dr. Martinez nodded slowly. I see. Well, the examination today supports your report of neurological fluctuations. I'll make sure my notes reflect that Emma is experiencing intermittent symptoms consistent with incomplete spinal cord recovery patterns. Those notes could save us or damn us, depending on how the next few hours played out. As we left the medical building, Emma grabbed my arm with surprising strength. Sarah, I can't do this. What if they arrest me right there in the police station? What if? They're not going to arrest you today, I said, though I wasn't sure I believed it myself. You're staying home while I handle Detective Reynolds. Just practice being paralyzed and don't answer the door for anyone. But as I drove toward downtown, I couldn't shake the feeling that our carefully constructed lies were about to collide with a reality we weren't prepared for. My phone buzzed one more time. A text from an unknown number. Hope you're ready for this, Sarah. I told them about the other evidence too. Other evidence. Marcus had more than just the casino video and surveillance photos. We were walking into an ambush. The Financial Crimes Division occupied the third floor of a brutally modern concrete building that looked designed to crush hope. I sat in my Honda Civic in the parking lot at 3:25 p.m., trying to calm my racing heart before facing Detective Reynolds. My phone buzzed with a text from Emma. Dr. Martinez's office called. They want to schedule additional tests for tomorrow instead of Thursday. Should I say yes? Tomorrow. That was impossibly fast, which meant Dr. Martinez had either become suspicious or genuinely believed Emma was experiencing a medical emergency. Either way, we were running out of time to maintain our deception. I typed back, yes. Tell them you're scared the episodes are getting worse. Inside the police station, Detective Reynolds turned out to be a woman in her 40s with sharp eyes and graying hair pulled into a severe bun. She led me into a cramped interview room with fluorescent lighting that made everything look sickly and institutional. Thank you for coming in, Miss Chen. I know this is difficult timing with your sister's medical situation. She opened a thick folder and spread several photographs across the metal table. But I think you'll understand why this couldn't wait. The photos were Marcus's surveillance shots, but seeing them laid out like evidence in a criminal case made my stomach clench. Emma walking into Starbucks. Emma feeding pigeons in the park. Emma getting out of a taxi, looking perfectly healthy and mobile. These images span approximately 6 weeks, Detective Reynolds continued. All showing your sister Emma engaging in activities that would be impossible for someone with the level of paralysis documented in her disability claims. I forced myself to look directly at each photograph, buying time while my mind raced. Detective, my sister has been experiencing intermittent neurological episodes. We were just at Dr. Martinez's office discussing. Ms. Chen. She held up a hand. Before you continue, I need to inform you of something important. The individual who provided these photographs also gave us access to additional evidence. Additional evidence. Marcus's mysterious other evidence that he'd referenced in his text. Detective Reynolds pulled out her tablet and opened what looked like a social media profile. Your sister has been maintaining an active Instagram account under the name Emma Explores for the past 8 months. 43 posts showing her at various locations around the city, all tagged with specific dates and locations. The blood drained from my face as she scrolled through post after post. Emma at art museums. Emma at outdoor concerts. Emma hiking, actually hiking, through local trails. Each post had timestamps, GPS coordinates, and Emma's face clearly visible. The most recent post was yesterday at 2:47 p.m., Detective Reynolds continued, stopping on an image of Emma sitting at a cafe, her legs casually crossed. About 6 hours before her supposed emergency neurological symptoms began. My carefully constructed story about intermittent recovery episodes crumbled to dust. There was no way to explain 43 social media posts documenting months of normal mobility as brief, unpredictable medical fluctuations. Detective, I had no idea about any social media account. Ms. Chen, let me be direct. We have video evidence, photographic surveillance, and now digital documentation spanning 8 months of your sister engaging in activities impossible for someone collecting federal disability benefits. The total fraudulent amount is approximately $78,000 when we include supplemental programs. $78,000. Even higher than my worst estimates. However, Detective Reynolds continued, there's something else we need to discuss. The individual who brought this evidence to our attention has also been engaged in illegal surveillance and attempted extortion. Marcus Webb spent 6 weeks stalking your sister and then tried to blackmail you this morning. I looked up sharply. You know about the blackmail? Mr. Webb was overly eager to share details about his investigation when he filed his report. He mentioned demanding that you give up a recent promotion in exchange for his silence. Detective Reynolds leaned back in her chair. That's a felony, Ms. Chen. And it complicates this case considerably. For the first time since seeing Marcus's video, I felt a flicker of hope. What does that mean exactly? It means we have 2 separate crimes to investigate. Your sister's disability fraud, and Mr. Webb's stalking and extortion charges. The question is how we proceed. Detective Reynolds closed the tablet and fixed me with a steady stare. I'm going to offer you something that doesn't happen often in fraud cases, Ms. Chen. Full cooperation in exchange for consideration. Tell us everything, when the fraud started, how it operated, what your sister's actual medical condition is, and we'll recommend reduced charges. And Marcus? Mr. Webb will face the full extent of criminal penalties for stalking and extortion. His illegal surveillance methods may actually help your case, depending on how honest you're willing to be with us. I sat in that sterile interview room, staring at photographs of my sister living a completely normal life while I believed she was paralyzed, and realized our deception had grown far beyond anything I'd imagined. Emma hadn't just been sneaking out for occasional walks, she'd been living an entire secret life, documenting it online, building a digital trail that stretched back almost to the beginning of her supposed recovery. The sister I thought I'd been protecting for 2 years had been protecting herself just fine while letting me carry the weight of her lie. Detective Reynolds, I said slowly, I think I need to call my sister. Actually, Ms. Chen, we'd prefer to bring Emma in for questioning tomorrow morning. After her medical appointment with Dr. Martinez, of course. My phone buzzed with another text from Emma. How did it go with the police? Are we okay? I stared at the message, written by someone who'd been maintaining an Instagram account called Emma Explores while I helped her in and out of a wheelchair she didn't need. We were definitely not okay. The drive home from the police station felt like traveling through a fever dream. Detective Reynolds had given me until 10 a.m. tomorrow to bring Emma in for questioning, along with a business card for a public defender who specialized in fraud cases. You'll want to call Attorney Morrison tonight, she'd said. Both of you are going to need representation. I sat in our apartment parking lot for 10 minutes, staring at Emma's Instagram profile on Detective Reynolds' tablet screenshots that she'd printed for me. Emma Explores had 847 followers. 847 people who'd been watching my supposedly paralyzed sister document her adventures around the city while I struggled to afford her medical bills. The apartment door was unlocked when I got home, another detail that should have been a red flag months ago. Emma was sitting in her wheelchair watching Netflix, but she quickly muted the TV when she heard me come in. Sarah. Thank God. How did it go? I was so worried. Emma Explores, I said flatly. The color drained from her face so completely that for a moment I thought she might actually faint. Her mouth opened and closed without sound, like she was drowning in air. Sarah, I can explain. 847 followers, Emma. 43 posts over 8 months. GPS coordinates, timestamps, your face in every single photo. I pulled out the printed screenshots and scattered them across our coffee table. Hiking trails. Art galleries. Restaurant reviews where you rated the ambience and walkability of different neighborhoods. Emma stared at the evidence of her double life spread across our living room. I never meant for anyone to see. I was careful about privacy settings. You posted a photo yesterday at 2:47 p.m. sitting at Cafe Luna with your legs crossed, Emma. 6 hours before you called Dr. Martinez crying about mysterious neurological symptoms. I sat down across from her, exhaustion replacing anger. The police know everything. Marcus didn't just have photos, he found her Instagram account and downloaded everything. Oh God. Emma's voice was barely a whisper. What happens now? Now we're both looking at federal fraud charges for $78,000 in stolen benefits. And tomorrow morning at 10 a.m., Detective Reynolds expects both of us to come in for formal questioning. Emma started crying, but the tears felt performative now. How many times over the past 14 months had she cried about her condition, her limitations, her fears about never walking again, all while maintaining a social media account dedicated to exploring the city on foot? The Instagram account started 8 months ago, I continued, studying the timestamps. Right around the time you said you were feeling depressed about your lack of progress. You weren't depressed, Emma. You were bored. Bored of pretending to be disabled while I was at work. It wasn't like that. Then what was it like? Because I'm trying to understand how my sister, who I've been caring for every day, who I've been sacrificing my career and social life for, has been living a completely normal life and documenting it online for strangers. Emma wheeled closer to me, reaching for my hands. Sarah, those posts, they were like proof that I still existed. That I wasn't just this broken person everyone pitied. When I was out there, when I could walk and explore and feel normal, it felt real. The Instagram was the only place I could be myself. Yourself? Emma, your real self committed federal fraud. Your real self let me believe I was your caretaker while you were out hiking and going to concerts. I pulled my hands away. Your real self might send us both to prison. My phone rang, Attorney Morrison's office, returning the call I'd made from the parking lot. Ms. Chen? I understand you need representation for fraud charges. Can you and your sister come in tonight at 8 p.m.? We need to prepare for tomorrow's questioning. I looked at Emma, still sitting in the wheelchair that had become the central prop in our elaborate deception. In 3 hours, we'd be sitting across from a lawyer, trying to explain how a simple lie about recovery had spiraled into a federal crime with an Instagram documentation trail. We'll be there, I said, and hung up. Emma was staring at her phone, probably looking at her own Instagram account for the first time since this nightmare began. Sarah, she said quietly. I need to tell you something else. The way she said it made my stomach drop. What now, Emma? The hiking photos. The ones from Bear Mountain Trail. She looked up at me with fresh tears. I wasn't alone. I stared at Emma, my mind struggling to process what she just said. What do you mean you weren't alone? There's a guy. His name is Tyler. Emma's voice was barely audible. We've been seeing each other for about 5 months. 5 months. The room started spinning as the implications hit me. Emma, please tell me you didn't. He knows about the disability payments, she whispered. He's known since almost the beginning. I felt like I was going to vomit. How much does he know? Everything. He was with me at the casino that night Marcus filmed us. He's in some of the Instagram photos, just not tagged. Emma was crying harder now. Sarah, he's been helping me plan the outings, making sure we went places where we wouldn't run into anyone who might recognize me. The betrayal cut deeper than anything Marcus had done. My sister hadn't just been living a secret life, she'd been sharing our criminal conspiracy with a complete stranger. Someone who could testify against us, who had first-hand knowledge of our fraud, who probably had his own photos and evidence. Where did you meet him? My voice sounded dead even to my own ears. At physical therapy. Back in March. He was there for a shoulder injury from rock climbing. Emma wiped her nose with her sleeve. He asked me out, and I said I couldn't because of my condition. But then I started having the mobility episodes, and when I told him about it. You told him about the fraud? Not at first. I just said I was scared to report the recovery because I might relapse. But Tyler said I deserved to live my life, that I shouldn't let fear hold me back. He encouraged me to go out, to explore the city, to document the experiences. My blood turned to ice. Tyler encouraged you to create the Instagram account? Emma nodded miserably. He said it would help me process the emotional aspects of recovery. That sharing my journey would inspire other people with disabilities. Emma, Tyler manipulated you into creating evidence of our fraud. I started pacing, my mind racing through the catastrophic implications. He convinced you to document everything, to create a digital trail that proves we've been stealing federal benefits for over a year. No, that's not, Tyler wouldn't do that. He cares about me. Where is Tyler now, Emma? He's been out of town this week. Visiting family in Portland. Her voice got smaller. He was supposed to be back yesterday, but he hasn't been answering my texts. The timing was too convenient. Tyler disappears right when Marcus files his police report, right when our fraud investigation begins. Either Tyler was involved in exposing us, or he was smart enough to get out of town before the authorities started asking questions about Emma's accomplice. Emma, I need Tyler's full name, his address, his phone number. Everything. Why? You don't think he... I think a guy who convinced you to document federal crimes on social media might not have your best interests at heart. I grabbed my laptop and opened a new search tab. What's his last name? Morrison. Tyler Morrison. The name hit me like a physical blow. Morrison. The same name as the defense attorney Detective Reynolds had recommended, the lawyer we were supposed to meet in 2 hours. Emma, are you absolutely sure his name is Tyler Morrison? Yes, why? Sarah, you're scaring me. My hand shook as I googled Tyler Morrison, Portland, Oregon. The search results made my worst fears seem optimistic. Tyler Morrison, 31, was listed as a private investigator specializing in insurance fraud cases. His company website featured testimonials from insurance companies praising his innovative undercover techniques and comprehensive evidence gathering. Emma had been dating a professional fraud investigator who specialized in exactly the kind of case we were now facing. Sarah, what did you find? I turned the laptop screen toward her, showing Tyler's professional headshot on his private investigation website. Emma's face went completely white. That's him, she whispered. But he told me he worked in marketing for an outdoor gear company. Emma, your boyfriend is a private investigator who specializes in insurance fraud. He's been building a case against us for 5 months. I scrolled through his website, finding testimonials about successful disability fraud investigations. The Instagram account, the documented outings, probably even the casino visit, he orchestrated all of it to create evidence. No, that can't be right. He loves me. We talked about moving in together, about what, Emma? About how you'd support yourselves once the disability payments stopped? Emma's silence was answer enough. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Sarah, this is Tyler Morrison. I think we need to talk before your meeting with Attorney Morrison tonight. Same last name isn't a coincidence. He's my uncle, and there are things about Emma's case you need to know. Meet me at Riverside Park, South Entrance, 7 p.m. Come alone. The web of deception was even more complex than I'd imagined, and Emma and I were trapped at the center of it. I stared at Tyler's text message, my mind reeling from this new revelation. Attorney Morrison wasn't just the lawyer Detective Reynolds had recommended, he was Tyler's uncle. The private investigator who'd been manipulating my sister for 5 months had a family member positioned to handle our legal defense. Emma, we're not going to that lawyer meeting tonight, I said, grabbing my keys. And you're coming with me to meet Tyler. Sarah, no. What if it's a trap? What if? What if what? We're already caught, Emma. Tyler has 5 months of evidence against us, his uncle was going to be our attorney, and Marcus has already turned everything over to the police. I looked at my sister, still sitting in that damn wheelchair. At this point, we need to know exactly how deep this conspiracy goes. Emma transferred herself to the passenger seat of our Honda with surprising efficiency, no struggling, no careful maneuvering. Just smooth, practiced movements that made me realize she'd probably been faking the difficulty of basic transfers for over a year too. The drive to Riverside Park took 12 minutes, during which Emma called Tyler's number 6 times. Each call went straight to voicemail, and his cheerful recorded message about living life to the fullest now sounded sinister rather than inspirational. What if he doesn't show up? Emma asked as we pulled into the parking area near the south entrance. Then we'll know he's definitely working against us, I replied, scanning the park for any sign of Tyler or police surveillance. Emma, I need you to understand something. If Tyler's been building a fraud case against us, everything he told you to do, the Instagram posts, the public outings, probably even dating you, was designed to create evidence. He wouldn't do that. The things we talked about, the plans we made, were probably recorded, Emma. Private investigators document everything. At exactly 7 p.m., a man matching Tyler's description from his website photo approached our car. He was tall, athletically built, wearing hiking boots and a flannel shirt that screamed outdoor enthusiast. The kind of guy who would naturally encourage a supposedly disabled woman to explore nature trails. I rolled down my window as he approached. Tyler Morrison? Sarah. Thank you for coming. His voice carried the same warmth Emma had probably fallen for, but his eyes were calculating. Emma, I know this is confusing, but I need you both to listen carefully. You're a fraud investigator, I said flatly. You've been building a case against us for 5 months. Tyler nodded without shame. Riverside Insurance hired me in March to investigate Emma's disability claim. They'd received an anonymous tip about possible fraudulent activity. What anonymous tip? Emma's voice was small and hurt. Someone reported seeing a woman matching Emma's description walking normally in downtown Portland in February. Riverside flagged it for investigation and hired my firm. February. 3 months before Emma claimed her mobility episode started, which meant she'd been walking around normally even earlier than she'd admitted to me. The original plan was standard surveillance to document fraudulent activity, Tyler continued. But when I approached Emma at physical therapy, she immediately confided in me about her secret recovery episodes. That gave me an opportunity to gather more comprehensive evidence. By manipulating her into creating an Instagram account, I said. By encouraging her to document her actual capabilities, yes. Sarah, your sister wasn't some innocent victim here. She eagerly participated in expanding the fraud once she thought she had someone supporting her deception. Emma was crying again, but I felt only cold anger. What's your uncle's role in this? Uncle David isn't part of the investigation. He's a legitimate defense attorney who specializes in fraud cases. When Detective Reynolds recommended him to you, she had no idea about our family connection. Tyler pulled out his phone. But that connection is actually why I'm here. He showed us a text message from someone named David Morrison. Tyler, the Chin case just got assigned to me. If you're involved in this investigation, we have a serious conflict of interest problem. Call me immediately. My uncle found out about my involvement an hour ago when Detective Reynolds sent him the case files, Tyler continued. He's ethically obligated to refuse your case now, which leaves you without legal representation 12 hours before your police interview. The trap was complete. Tyler had manipulated Emma into creating evidence. His uncle couldn't represent us due to conflict of interest, and we were scheduled to be questioned by police tomorrow morning without a lawyer. What do you want, Tyler? I asked. I want to offer you a deal that my uncle can't. Riverside Insurance is primarily interested in recovering the fraudulent payments and preventing future claims. If Emma agrees to fully cooperate with their investigation and provides testimony about how the fraud operated, they'll recommend reduced criminal charges. And if we refuse? Tyler's expression hardened. Then you'll face Detective Reynolds tomorrow with no legal representation, and I'll provide Riverside with 5 months of detailed evidence showing premeditated, ongoing fraud conspiracy. Emma grabbed my arm. Sarah, maybe we should consider. No. I started the car engine. We're not making any deals with the person who entrapped you, Emma. Tyler stepped back from our car. Sarah, you have until 9 a.m. tomorrow to reconsider. After that, all evidence goes to the district attorney with a recommendation for maximum prosecution. As we drove away, Emma turned to me with desperate eyes. What are we going to do now? I looked at my sister, really looked at her, and realized that for the first time in 2 years, I finally understood exactly who she was. Not the victim I'd been protecting, but someone who'd made calculated choices that had led us both to this moment. Now we're going to find a real lawyer, I said. And Emma? No more lies. About anything. By 11 p.m. that night, I'd found us a real attorney, Maria Santos, who specialized in federal fraud cases and had no connection to Tyler Morrison or his family. She agreed to an emergency consultation at her office, where we spent 3 hours laying out the complete truth of our situation. Your case is complicated by the entrapment elements, Attorney Santos told us at 2 a.m. Tyler Morrison's manipulation could provide grounds for reducing charges, but Emma's Instagram documentation is still legitimate evidence of fraud. Emma sat beside me, finally looking genuinely paralyzed by fear rather than performance. What are our options? Cooperation with full restitution, or fight the charges and risk 20 years each. Santos closed her files. I'll negotiate with Detective Reynolds in the morning, but Emma needs to be prepared to surrender all disability benefits immediately and provide complete testimony about Tyler's role. At 9:30 a.m., we sat across from Detective Reynolds in the same sterile interview room where my life had imploded yesterday. But this time, Attorney Santos was beside us, and I felt something I hadn't experienced in days: control. My client is prepared to cooperate fully, Santos began, in exchange for consideration regarding the entrapment elements of this case. Detective Reynolds nodded. We're interested in Mr. Morrison's methods as well. Tyler Morrison has conducted similar operations for 3 insurance companies, and we're investigating whether his tactics constitute legal entrapment. Emma took a shaky breath. Detective, I want to tell you everything. From the beginning. For the next 2 hours, Emma detailed her recovery timeline, Tyler's manipulation, and the expansion of our fraud from simple unreported improvement to elaborate documented deception. She admitted to walking normally since January, 3 months before she'd told me, and revealed that Tyler had encouraged increasingly bold public outings specifically to create evidence. Tyler told me the Instagram posts were for my emotional healing, Emma said, tears streaming down her face. But he always suggested the locations, the timing, even the captions. He wanted documentation of everything. Detective Reynolds took notes steadily. Emma, we need you to testify against Tyler Morrison in exchange for reduced charges. Are you prepared to do that? Yes. He used me, and he hurt my sister in the process. I'll testify. The final resolution came faster than I'd expected. Within a week, Emma pled guilty to disability fraud with cooperation agreement, receiving 2 years probation and full restitution of $78,000. Tyler Morrison was arrested on charges of entrapment, fraud conspiracy, and unlawful surveillance. His innovative techniques were ruled illegal by the district attorney. Marcus faced his own reckoning. His stalking and blackmail charges resulted in 18 months prison time, and he lost his job at our company. The promotion he tried to steal went to Jennifer Walsh, who actually deserved it. But the real resolution came 3 months later, as Emma and I sat in our downsized apartment, both working double shifts to pay back the restitution money. Sarah, Emma said one evening, I know I can never make up for what I did to you. To us. I looked at my sister, walking normally, working as a waitress, finally living honestly, and realized something had fundamentally changed between us. You're right, you can't make up for it, I said. But we're going to move forward anyway. Together. No more lies, no more secrets, no more wheelchairs you don't need. Emma smiled, the first genuine smile I'd seen from her in years. No more wheelchairs, she agreed. It wasn't the ending either of us had planned, but it was honest. And after 2 years of living Tyler Morrison's lie and Marcus Webb's blackmail, honesty felt like the most revolutionary choice we could make. We'd lost almost everything, but we'd found something more valuable, the truth about who we really were when everything else was stripped away.